Hi, welcome. It's Monday. I'm Mover. Let's get the chat up. Welcome back. I hope everybody has had a great weekend, and it's been a while since the Memorial Day stream. So, special opportunity, special guest today. You may remember him from the interviews we did, interview series. So if you haven't seen those videos, check them out. Colonel Steve Smokey Ladd, who, great guy, awesome story, flew F4s for several tours and then ended up flying the A10 as one of the first A10 pilots. So really cool individual, great to have him on the channel. But Smokey, thanks for being on the channel. Thanks for joining us. I know it's late there, and of course when things are late, that's when things break.
Not to worry. It's good to be here.
Your audio sounds great too, by the way, so that's good.
Okay,
we're
good.
We're good. So Helio Courier Channel asks, I've heard from A10 pilots that the Warthog flies like a big Cessna 172. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely not. Cessna 172, in fact, was the first training airplane that I ever flew in the Air Force, called the T-41. And it flew just like a Cessna 172. The A10 is 1,000 times more exciting than that. It has everything but speed. It's maneuverable. It has great visibility. It has great ability to stay over the target area and do things. Now, you can't put Cessna 172s in any way, shape, or form in the same league with the Hog.
Okay. Did you find when you were flying it that because it's got all that protection in the front, did that get in the way? Like, were you kind of looking around, or did you have good forward visibility?
Oh, forward visibility is great. Yeah, there's nothing there but the HUD, really. The whole canopy layout is perfect for visibility, and it really works good.
Awesome. Well, I put in the description, by the way, your book is still for sale, right? We've talked about your book.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell us about that real quick while I've got the scrolly going.
Okay, the book's still for sale. I just happen to have a copy here. Oh. That's what it looks like, and it's called From F4 Phantom to A10 Warthog. It's a book of memoirs. It's not all about flying. In fact, I've had a little bit of criticism, not a lot, because there's not a great deal of flying in it. There is more than people think, but the intent was not to portray myself as Chuck Yeager or Robin Olds. I'm not. The intent was to paint a picture of the psyche and the culture of the fighter pilot, and that's what it does throughout, through anecdotes and my life. Yeah, it's doing very well in the States. In fact, it's selling very well. Good. And from the reviews, folks seem to like it. What more could I ask?
You had a review in the chat. Door Productions, if I'm pronouncing that right, says, excellent book. I'm almost done with it. Is there an audiobook?
It is in progress. It is being recorded as we speak.
Are you audiobooking it? Are you going to read it?
No, I'm not. I'm not. A guy named Jeff Bolton is audiobooking it. He's a great friend of the military. He's a producer and a talk show host in his own right, and he's reading the book. I guess he's about 3/4 of the way through it right now, so it should be on the streets before too very long.
Awesome.
So the book now is hardback and Kindle version with the audio to come.
Awesome. And Barry asked, it's on Amazon, correct? Anywhere you can buy an ebook or a paperback?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can get it through the U.S. distributors, my U.S. distributors, which is Casemate. And if you go to my website, you can find a number of links to buy it.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to the audiobook. I've recently discovered audiobooks, and they're amazing. They help with the drive, so that'll be good.
Good.
Jackson asks, which variants of the Phantom did you fly?
All of them except the Navy versions. I flew the C, the D, and the E. I flew the reconnaissance version once or twice just to regain currency, but I flew all three models. at one time or another. I flew the D in combat in Southeast Asia. Most of the time, however, was after that. So most of the time was in the E model, both the hard wing and the slatted version. All great machines, all had their own little personalities, but all very much the same. All power, noise, and thunder.
Wow, wow. So literally, the guy's name is a MiG-21. So a MiG-21 wants to know how you got behind other aircraft in the F-4. I love it.
Oh well, through monumental skill and cunning.
Yeah.
How you get behind other airplanes? Well, it's age-old geometry, and in the F4, it was a matter of being able to use power and the vertical. You could not outturn most airplanes, so you had to use the vertical to get above them, to come down on them, to gain speed, and if you were then fairly clever in dashing, you could do some things geometrically and end up where you wanted to be.
Perfect. Perfect. That's awesome. I just discovered this feature I forgot about. I'm going to actually show the comments as I read them. So here we go.
Okay.
The next one, and I think we actually touched on this during our interview because I know I asked this, but we'll refresh our memories. VideoAwesome says, also, what was your scariest moment while flying?
VideoAwesome, it's in the book, but I'll tell you about it briefly. The scariest moment, believe it or not, and you would think with 204 combat missions and 400 combat hours and all the rest of it, it would have to do with being shot at and the rest, but it wasn't. The scariest moment I had in the air ever had to do with a almost terminal case of vertigo, and it occurred on the tanker over Thailand at night. And the northeastern part of Thailand, where the tanker tracks were at night, looks very much like the sky, the stars, because it's very sparsely populated. Just a few lights on the ground, just a few stars in the air. The tanker was going through, in a very gentle turn, going through some cirrus clouds. And as happens, my gyros simply tumbled. And I found myself, at least as far as I was concerned, and as far as what my brain was telling me, upside down with three other F4s and a tanker. We were all upside down, and we were all going to die. Now, the old adage is, and the only smart way to handle that is, you always believe your instruments. They won't lie to you. Your brain will. And it did. And I did my damnedest to believe the flight instruments, but my brain wouldn't let me. And that was the most terrifying 3 or 4 minutes of my entire life, not only my flying. The guy I was flying with, I told him about it, obviously. I didn't want to keep it a secret. And he, in fact, talked me through it until I could get my gyros recaged and my head on straight again. And until I came out of it, but I was drenched in sweat, hyperventilating. It was not a good time. But there's a chapter in the book about it. I hope if you read it, you'll find it pretty descriptive, and you'll find that almost all pilots experience vertigo one time or another. It just depends on how bad it is. And in my case, it was awful.
Now, with that experience, you said you got, you were kind of getting that anxiety, after it happened. Did you find going back when you tried to recreate, like when you did a night tanker later, did you find yourself kind of dreading that knowing how awful that experience was, or did you just compartmentalize it?
No, it was obviously a one-off. It was a combination of things. It was a combination of the stars above, the sparse lights below, the tanker going through cirrus clouds and rolling into just a 20-degree bank in the middle of the clouds. And when he came out, the wispy clouds coming over the canopy just somehow or another discombobulated me. And it was not a nice thing. But I never thought about it as something that I'd worry about recurring.
Yeah, yeah, but you know the tanker guys always find the weather anyway, so
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
so your friend the MiG-21 is curious about your book. How long did it take you to write it?
Well, it took about 7 years to write, and
Jeez.
that's only because I'm terminally lazy. The stories were always there. I always knew that I had a tale to tell, but I am certainly as an author, or when I was on the rare occasions when I was forced to administrate in the Air Force, I'm possibly the most disorganized person you'll ever come across. I didn't sit down and write from 2 to 4 every day
Mm-hmm.
religiously. When I got the inspiration, I sat down and I wrote a little bit. And then I had a lot of help from my wife, who, after about 2, 3 years of this, said, "You're never going to finish this. Get off your butt and start writing." So she charged up the cattle prod every now and then, and she'd come on over and give me a zap and get me motivated again. But it took a lot longer than it needed to. Let's put it that way. But only because of my own organizational deficiencies.
That's awesome. All right, moving on to the next one. Rusty, Smokey, is it true that A-10 pilots would slump down in the bathtub when AAA was on your ass in a bomb or gun run? People,
No,
see
because
any?
you didn't really know the bathtub was there. It's underneath you all the time. It's very comforting to know that it's there, but it's not something that you could actually slump down into. You're sitting on the ejection seat. The ejection seat's positioned over the bathtub. And hey, when you're in a AAA situation, you got far too much to worry about to slump down in the bathtub anyway.
That's awesome. Well, before I forget, let me get this one email question I got from George. I grew up in Alexandria, Louisiana. It was a daily sight seeing A7s and A10s in the skies around England Air Force Base. Do you or Smokey have any memories or stories to tell about the A10s with the 23rd TFW at England Air Force Base?
No, because I never belonged to the 23rd
Okay.
TFW at England Air Force Base. I knew an awful lot of guys that did, and certainly it was one of the prime A10 bases, and obviously beforehand A7 bases, but just never happened to be one that I went to. I flew the A10 in a lot of different places. I flew it at in Bentwaters in the UK. I flew it in Germany when I was stationed there. I flew it at Nellis 2 or 3 different times, but never in Louisiana, I'm afraid.
Awesome, awesome. All right, and this next one is a super chat from an HH60G SMA. I'm the same way with my student write-ups daily. I just get lazy writing them. So
Yeah.
somebody who empathizes. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. Now, thank you for that one. Yeah, here's one. Did you ever buzz the tower?
Not the tower, but what we used to do on a regular basis is we used to go to the gunnery ranges in the Wash in eastern England. There were 3 or 4 of them: Holbeach, Wainfleet, Donanook,
Awesome.
and Cowden, and they all had towers. They all had range control towers, and the Brits that manned them were always looking for what they used to call a doors check, and these started in the F4 because we carried practice bombs in a little Sioux. I forget the designation, but it was a little thing that carried 6 practice bombs, and legally, if you thought the doors hadn't closed, you would seek someone to take a look at them and see if the doors had closed. Well, legally or not, virtually every time we went to the range, the guys in the tower would request a doors check, and we started out in the F4 doing it, and we can continue doing it in the A10. And we Mavericks got nothing on us. We went lower and quicker and faster, and probably made the guys spill their coffee.
That is awesome. I love it. Another F4 question because, God, that's just what an awesome airplane. Always loved the F4. What did you like about it and what didn't you like about it?
I like damn near everything about it. I like the power. I like the speed. I liked I liked the way that it looked. It was aggressive and it was mean and it was most
Yeah.
assuredly an airplane to go to war in. What I didn't like about it, it could be unpredictable, and
Yeah.
it's something that you had to learn, and we all did. Those of us who didn't find ourselves in dire straits, but there was a situation called adverse yaw in the F4, and it had to do with the configuration of the airplane, the fact that it had a droopy tail and bent up wings, and the fact that it was relatively unstable at high G, which makes for a better fighting airplane, but it makes it a little tougher to fly. And if you were maneuvering at high G in the F4 and you decided to throw the stick to the right to turn right, you would rapidly find yourself snapped to the left and very possibly on the verge of a spin, just because of the aerodynamics of it. Now, I'm not a an aerodynamic kind of guy, so I can't explain that part of it. But the solution of it was, if you were going to load up with G and turn the airplane, you had to turn the airplane with rudder. So you'd pull hard on it, you'd stomp on the rudder, and it would turn just like any other plane would if you used the stick. That, quite honestly, is the only thing. Well, there's one other thing, minor little thing I didn't like about the F4, the American version. We used to leave a long, greasy black smoke trail everywhere we went, and we were easy to see, and that was a source of consternation, certainly in combat, because you don't want people to see you.
Wow. All right. All right. DH-98. What's the longest of your missions with either the A10 or the F4?
Um, the length record came in the F4, and it would have been one of the combat missions, because depending on the situation and depending on the ordnance, we had tankers available 24 hours a day, 24/7, 365. There were 3 tanker tracks over northeast Thailand, and if you had ordnance available and you were waiting, for example, to find some truck movement on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, you couldn't find anything. You'd look and you'd look and you'd look, and you get low on fuel, and you'd head back out to the tanker and you'd gas up again. And I can remember missions when I did that all 3-4 times. I suppose the longest mission I flew in the F4 was around probably 6.5, 7 hours. There weren't many like that, but that was probably the lengthiest. In the A10 has good legs. It can hang around for quite a bit. So I suppose there were a couple of missions when I got 2.5, 3 hours out of the A10. That's without refueling.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Here's another on your book. No spoilers. Just finished the section on the second round at Wick. Excellent book. Well done.
Thank you, Spencer. You are a good man, and I appreciate it, and I'm absolutely delighted you're enjoying it. Give me a review on Amazon, will you?
Absolutely. As an author, I know how important Amazon, Goodreads, all those places.
Yep.
Just load them up.
Yep.
Cody wants to know, is there a way to hot swap ammo into the A10? I guess, did you guys do any kind of hot rearming?
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy, because a gun, if you've ever seen the photograph, is the whole thing is about the same size as a Volkswagen. So it's a great, enormous piece of equipment. But they also built a pretty spiffy piece of equipment to load the gun. You could wheel it up there, and basically the gun worked on a linkless system, so you could run the cartridges or the bullets up into the gun. We retained cartridges; you didn't drop them. So the spent cartridges went out into this piece of equipment. The new cartridges went into the airplane, and you could do that with you sitting in the cockpit. The engine's running in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
Great airplane to maintain.
you were one of the first to actually fly the A10, right? You were initial, I mean, within a year, a couple of years of it.
Yeah, I suppose a couple of years. There were guys that got into it, but before I did, I was in the first cadre to take them to Europe. I was in the first squadron to go to Europe with the A10, and that was in early '79. Yeah, I was one of the fairly early guys. I flew it when we when we had no avionics. It was kind of like a SPAD with fan jet engines.
Did you ever get to pick it up from the factory, or did it
No,
have
I
the new
never did
car
that.
smell? No,
Never did
any
that.
like low hour jets you flew?
Yeah, because a lot of the jets that we checked out in to come to Bentwaters were at Davis Monthan, and they had come from the factory, so they were low time airplanes. They weren't. When I started flying them, there weren't many airplanes with more than a year on them, and an awful lot of them had less than that.
Wow, that'd be amazing just to fly a brand new airplane. Okay,
Yeah.
back to VideoAwesome is back, and he would like to know what was more enjoyable, the F4 or the A10?
Video, apples and oranges. They were both absolutely tremendous airplanes to fly. As I said before, the F4 was all speed and power and noise, and man, when you plugged in the afterburners, it rumbled in your gut, and it was always the most powerful experience I ever had in an airplane. The A10, on the other hand, was maneuverable. We operated at very low level, which was a whole lot of fun. And it did an awful lot of things that a faster, bigger airplane couldn't. And the mission of the A10, in my humble opinion, was probably the best mission of all, and that's supporting the grunts on the ground. When guys got in trouble, they were begging for the hog, and they loved it. And it was a great airplane for support, and it was a great mission. So
That is awesome.
Six of one, half a dozen of the other.
I love it. I love it. In fact, Cool Kid Ferret says, "Dad's a hog pilot. Love what you guys do." So there you go. There's that mission.
Me too. Good on your dad. I wish I was still one.
This is a good one. So, and in fact, we talked about this. I remember this story. So I don't know. This is in the book. Has any kid adult waved at you while you were flying over something?
Absolutely. It happens all the time. They wave at you. At Bentwaters, of course, we had an area that was outside the perimeter of the base. It was outside the security fence, and we called it Commie Corner because the Brits used to congregate there because they, like a lot of people, they loved looking at airplanes. They tracked tail numbers. They did all that kind of stuff. And they were within about, I suppose, 50 meters of where we armed. So they were always waving and jumping up and down and taking pictures. But yeah, you would go out on missions and find 3 or 4 kids on bicycles and roll in on them for dry strafe pass. And they kind of enjoyed it. They waved. They didn't fall off, as I recall. But yeah, most people enjoyed seeing the A10, and most people enjoyed interacting with it. So we got a lot of waves.
That is awesome. Here's one. What was it like to fly in the weather in Northern Europe?
It was an experience, and it honed your skills as a pilot, because the weather in Central and Northern Europe, very unpredictable. At times it was lovely when the weather was great. It was terrific place to fly VFR. When it wasn't, you spent an awful lot of time on the instruments, and we spent most of our time, particularly in the A10, trying to think of a way to get down below the clouds so we could work and do our job. But the more you worked at that, the better you got at it. And although it was a hell of a lot different from flying at Nellis or in Arizona, or in Thailand for that matter. It was a challenge, but it was something that kept you at the top of your game.
That's awesome. Was the A10, I mean, were you prone to spatial disorientation in the A10, or was it a pretty stable instrument
Not not
platform?
not not certainly not any more than in the F4. No,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
All right, so Michael, did you miss not having a radar in the A10 and comments on not having a +1 anymore when transitioning to the, oh, so single seat, no radar. How'd you feel
Yeah,
about this?
I'll tell you what, Michael. I missed not having a lot of things in the A10 because I flew the A model. And once again, I'll refer back to the book. We had virtually nothing but a map. We had no inertial navigation system. We had none of this magical GPS that they do now. They've incorporated all that now into the C model. But man, when I was flying it, as I said before, it was kind of like a SPAD with fan jet engines. We had no avionics at all. And there's a whole subchapter in the book about uh, meandering around with about a 4 foot section of map that's plastic covered on your lap. And what do you do when you pull G and drop it on the floor? Because unlike in your living room or your car, you
Yeah,
just can't lean over and pick it up. So
yeah.
it's a pretty exciting thing. I didn't. I don't think most guys in the A10 missed a radar much because that's not the kind of work we did.
Right.
There were exceptions. Tanker join ups was one. We could have used a radar for that, but what the hell? We had trouble catching up with the tanker as it was, so it was just a matter of maneuvering and getting behind him and getting him to slow down enough that we could catch him. But
Yeah.
otherwise, no, we didn't do a lot of air to air intentionally, so a radar was not the biggest thing. As far as the +1 went, um, I feel strongly both ways. I started my life as a +1. That's another story.
Yep.
When I went through pilot training, those of us who were lucky enough to get the F4 were not lucky enough to get in the front seat. That's not where the Air Force was putting us. They were putting us in the pit. So I learned the value of the guy back there. And when I did get in the front and I had a gib of my own, it was quite amazing uh, what kind of superb teamwork you could come up with between the two of you. Once we went into the A10, yeah, it was just me, and I enjoyed that part of it immensely. No decisions by committee. It was just me and my airplane, and that was a wonderful thing to behold.
That is awesome. Little. I'm gonna trill, Lily Trill. I'm gonna say Lily Trill. I have Colonel Ladd's book right next to me. I love the A10 jokes. One lesson I got from the book: don't fight Spanish bulls. What's a
I
something
never
about?
did I never did that again. And what's that about? Well, it's something in the F4 days. Back in the F4 days, when I was stationed at Torrejon in Spain, the squadron had occasionally would have a party at a finca, which is a ranch, and the ranch that we used to go to, the rancher there trained fighting bulls for a living. That's what he did. And these things, when they were mature, when they went into the ring, weighed something around 1,400, 1,600 pounds. They were big bubbas. But
Wow.
we'd go out to these parties, get pretty well oiled on sangria and that kind of stuff. And he'd when we got drunk enough that we were invincible, we'd get in the ring and they'd put a baby bull in there. And I had a little encounter with a small bull, 200, 250 pounds. And hey, he kicked my ass. There's no question about it. But it's pretty good reading. I ended up with a broken collarbone, but it's something I'll never forget.
Wow. Wow. That's whew, that's all right. Here's one. I've heard that missiles in the F4 were very unreliable. Was that true?
Um, No.
All right.
The I think what you're probably referring to is what we used in the very early days of Southeast Asia, which was the AIM-4, the Hughes Falcon. And that was incredibly unreliable. It was a real pain. You had to cool the seeker head, so you had to hit your button and cool the seeker head for X number of seconds for it to be able to function. And of course, by that time, your target was probably on the ground. The guy was having a cup of coffee, and it didn't work very well, but it didn't last very long either.
Yeah.
The Sparrow, which is a long range radar missile, has always been a good quality missile. And the replacement for the AIM-4, the AIM-9, various models of the AIM-9 Sidewinder are absolutely superb. And they went from a rear aspect only to a missile that you could fire from most aspects and get a kill. I got nothing but good to say about Sidewinders.
That's awesome. I've shot one. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
They are.
they're cool. Picard says there's two big, beautiful beasts. I think he's talking about you and me, but I'm not sure.
Well, maybe one time it was. Here, I'll show you the book again. This is me 52 years ago. And maybe you're right on this one, eh?
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Let's see. VideoAwesome and MiG-21 both have the same question, so we'll just pick one. What is your advice for somebody who wants to be you today?
Man. Oh man!
And fly Fat Amy instead of the F4.
Well, the first thing I'd say is jump on Movers. Jump on Movers is a website or a channel. Make them tell you no.
Oh, the Facebook group. Yeah,
the Facebook group.
A lot of good fighter pilots hang out there and answer questions. That's a really good resource.
Because a lot of guys. I mean, it's a world of difference. MiG-21 and who's the other one?
VideoAwesome. He also
VideoAwesome. It's a world of difference nowadays from what it was when I entered the Air Force. When I got in the Air Force, and this is true throughout my career. I was lucky. I was lucky in that we had a war going on in Southeast Asia. They needed pilots big time. They were pumping them through like there was no tomorrow. So getting a pilot training slot compared to today, I think, was relatively easy.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to do that today, I can't address the details. Like I said, make them tell you no. The Facebook site is a good one because there's lots of guys in there that chip in that are current. But I would say probably the most important thing is just what you might read from the name of that Facebook site. Don't give up. Don't let them turn you around. Don't let them stuff you. Keep after it. If that's what you really want, you'll find a way to get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Going back to Rusty, I'm not even, I personally have no idea what this means, so maybe you do. APR 38 Wild Weasel?
I think the APR 38's the radar, but I never did. I never flew. I never flew the Weasel aircraft. They were F4Gs, I think they called them, and they were the radar
on.
was, the radar was built specifically to go hunting for SAM sites. And I had a backseater in the F4 that was a Wild Weasel in F105s. And man, that's a job that was tough and scary, but very rewarding because they took out a lot of threats that could have gotten the rest of us. But no, I never got to fly that airplane.
Jim would like to know, how can one get an autographed copy of your book?
Well, you would think it'd be difficult because I live in the UK, and you would think it would be difficult. But it's not, because the publisher came up with an idea that I think works very well. It's called a signature plate, and I've got writer's cramp from signing the damn things. I've signed them by the stack, and if you get your book You simply need to send an email to my publisher, and I've got that. I don't have it right here with me, but I've got the address. You send an email to the publisher. You tell them you want a signature plate, and for the really good price of absolutely nothing, they'll send you one of these plates. It's a self-adhesive little thing like a stamp, fits very nicely into the book, and
Cool.
it's a real signature. It's not a photocopy. It's me and my arthritis scribbling on a piece of paper, so it's not tough to get.
Yeah.
But if you get the book, drop me a line. You can get to me through my Facebook page. You can get to me on phantom.2.warthog@gmail.com, whatever, and I will send you detailed instructions on how to go back to the publisher and get yourself a signature plate.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. All right. Moving on to John, because I know I don't want to keep. I know it's late there.
Oh
But
no,
we'll keep on.
I'm having fun.
John would like to know what's the funniest experience
Oh
while flying the
man,
A10. Do you have a
oh man,
funniest experience?
that one I'm really going to have to think about.
We can always come back. We can come
Okay,
back. We
let me
can. We
think.
can.
Let me
We
think
can.
about that
We
one
can come
because
back.
I'm sure there were some, but nothing comes to mind right this minute.
Okay, Rusty actually, in response to your statement, make them tell you no is universal. Have told my son the exact same thing. Yes, it
Absolutely,
applies to everything.
stick to it. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, did you ever fly with Colonel Olds?
No, and
No.
I'm sorely disappointed that I didn't. Um, I got to Ubon about 2 years after he commanded there and after he left. So I never got to fly with a guy. I heard the legend. I'm still hearing about the legend. Um, he is. I will tell you right now. He is the kind of guy that I wrote this book, hopefully to be able to depict. I wanted to. I wanted to, in the best way that I could, to illustrate that spirit and that drive and that leadership of a guy who never met, but who I feel like I know because I've heard about him since I was a second balloon.
Well, that's a good question here. On that note, did you have a specific mentor or leader you admired, and what were some of the most important lessons that they conveyed? I bet you it's in your book.
It is.
Yeah.
I have lots of them. So on page 60. I've got
Why not
I've got that
69? You're
I've got
nine
that
pages
one.
short. Ah,
No,
that's not a fighter pilot book.
I have throughout my career from lieutenant onwards, like anybody that ends up flying fighters, you will gravitate towards people that inspire you, that impress you, that you want to be like. And oh, there were lots of them. It's tough to mention them. You've never heard of them anyway because they were never famous. They never got rich. Most of them never pinned a star on. A few of them did, but they were the kind of guys that you would go out and fly with, and you'd be in awe of the way they flew, and they were the kind of leaders that would come back from a flight and debrief you and rip little strips off you about what you've done wrong, and you didn't like it, but you took it. And then an hour later, he'd take you over to the bar and he'd reapply all those little strips, and he'd buy you a beer, and
That's
he would
awesome.
then uh, get you back into the mood that you should be in. There were lots of guys like that, and if I can say, I hope that in later days I was one of them.
That's awesome. That's where you were. I mean, your career, the weapon school and whatnot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We kind of talked about this a little bit in the interview, but did you continue in aviation after the military?
I didn't fly. I continued in aviation in a form. I retired to the UK because I liked it here. I like warm beer. I'm strange in that way. But I retired here in the UK, and I worked for the Civil Aviation Authority, which is the UK equivalent to the FAA, safety inspecting airports and building a safety system for them. After I did that for a little while, I went to a couple of airports, and apparently they liked what they saw. So one of them hired me to be the operations director. That was at the regional airport in the capital of Wales, which is Cardiff, which many of you probably never heard of. But it was small regional airport. But I was the ops director there and liked it. And from that point on, I stayed with the airport company, and I did a bit of risk management and environmental management and all that kind of queep. And then finally, just before I really hung everything up, I worked for a company here in Bristol called Ascent Flight Training. And our task was to build flying training programs for the Royal Air Force, the Royal Army, and the Royal Navy, because, as you might imagine, they all had their own programs. They all did it differently. It cost a hell of a lot of money, and our job was to try to put together a program that, for the main, they could all use, save them a heap of money, and come out with some better training. So I was what they called a curriculum development lead for them for a long time. I can say without shadow of a doubt that none of the jobs I've just described were anywhere near as much fun as climbing in an airplane.
That is, I believe that. I do believe that. There's not 10% true. That's 100% true.
That's 100% true.
Christian just wants to know, did you ever fly at Myrtle Beach or in West Virginia? You didn't do much in the States, right?
No, not a great deal. I flew out of Myrtle Beach once, and that's when we brought the squadron of airplanes from Davis-Monthan to Bentwaters, and we staged out of Myrtle Beach. Dare I say it's in the book, but but that was the only time. I was never stationed there, but on that one occasion we all saddled up at Myrtle and headed out over the water towards the UK.
Kevin says, I like what you're saying now. So
I'm glad you do, Kevin. I'm glad you do.
Thanks. Jerry would like to know, what is it like firing the A10's gun?
I thought you would never ask, Jerry. I thought nobody was going to bring that up. So I think what I probably ought to do is use my props here.
We have props?
I have props.
Hold on. You gotta be.
This is a 20 millimeter bullet from the F4E gun, which was called the Vulcan, M61 Vulcan. It fires a lot of bullets, 6,000 rounds a minute, and it's about this big. Now, by means of comparison, I would like to show you, and I would like to demonstrate for you the great hunk of metal, the 30 millimeter gun from the Gal 8 and the A10. Now, can you see the difference here? Okay. Now, this piece of metal, this bullet, is a product of the most fearsome weapon ever mounted in an airplane, as far as I'm concerned. We carried 1,170 rounds. Okay. We fired 70 of these per second. Let me say that again. Out of a 7-barrel Gatling gun, 70 per second. It's 4,200 rounds a minute. And the combat mix of this particular little item is 5 armored piercing incendiary rounds, misnomered the atomic bullet because they contain depleted uranium, which is certainly not as radioactive as a shovel full of dirt in your backyard. But somebody made the mistake of calling it that because it uses depleted uranium to give it mass. 5 of those rounds to punch great holes in armored vehicles and whatever else you're shooting at, followed by a single round in the sequence of high explosive incendiary, which goes through the great big holes this thing punches and ruins the day of the tank crew or whoever might be as part of your target. Now, what was it like firing it? It was a religious experience, Jerry. It really was. Firing the A10 gun, particularly for the first time, I'll never forget it. As I said, we carried 1,170 rounds, fire 70 a second. So you don't need long bursts, okay? You need a very short burst, half a second burst. The gun is incredibly accurate. It's harmonized at 4,000 feet, and it'll put a great massive clump of these things in an area that's not very big, okay? So you don't need a long burst, but you put your gun cross, which is the HUD designation, a little cross on the HUD like this, on the target. You squeeze off a short burst like that, and the gun goes, and the first time I did it, there's a saying that fighter pilots use all the time for various things, and I used it then. Usually it's an exclamation. This time it was almost like a prayer. I said, "Shit," because it was honestly, as I said, almost a religious experience. I have never experienced anything like that before. I did many times afterwards, fortunately, but firing the A10 gun, nah, wow. Nothing beats it. Nothing beats it.
Can you hold them sideways again, like the 20 millimeter? And I got to see this. So just sideways. Can you hold them? Can you? Uh-oh. Did I break the internet doing that?
I'm trying to center it here on the. Wait a minute.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
There you go.
God.
How's that?
God, that's depressing. That's
a little bit of difference there, isn't
round. Yeah, that's the Viper round. I've got one back here. You know, I got the little 20 millimeter. Yeah. We're not gonna show it though, because you know, I can't. I mean,
it'd be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's awesome. No, thank you. That's great.
You bet.
Let's see. We got. If you had the chance to fly any plane you wanted, any kind of aircraft, what would you go for?
It's a good question, Ashling. I would go for either the F4 or the A10 because, and again, this is something I pirated to put in the book. A guy named Ernest Hemingway back in 1944 wrote a little something about airplanes and about pilots. And I'll paraphrase it because I haven't got it here to read, but he said, more than any woman or any horse or any other object, a beautiful airplane is something that stays with you forever. And if the airplane that you lose your virginity in is a beautiful airplane, it will stay with you forever. I'd have an awfully tough time choosing between the Phantom and the Hog because they were so different, but they were so great in their own ways. But it'd be one of those two. Maybe I could talk them into 2 flights.
There you go. If you had a genie, you wish for a million wishes. That's how it
Yeah,
works. You just ask.
absolutely.
A comment, not a question, but I think it's awesome. My dad and I love your book. Dad flew F-100s out of Da Nang in early summer of '64. F-4Cs out of, you're gonna have to help me. Camron, is it Camron?
Cameron Bay
Okay.
in South Vietnam.
And then T-38s at Webb in Columbus. He retired in '72. Good job. So they love your
You bet.
book. And to me, that is the best review you can get when you've got people that have done it and
Yep.
they're your peers, right? Because
Yep.
that is awesome. That just tells you it's legit. So
Absolutely.
congratulations on that.
People like that give me a pat on the back and say, "Hey, I liked what you wrote." That is the finest tribute I could get, and there have been more than a few of them, and I am most grateful for each and every one.
That is awesome. Robert would like to know if you ever got a stall warning after firing the gun.
No, um, there's there's a story going around that was never true, but they used to say the airplane would slow down when you fired the gun, and possibly it would, but for reasons I mentioned before, you never fired it for more than a half a second or so, so there's not a lot of time. The other thing that you might be referring to there, Robert, is the fact that over a long period of time, the gun gases that come out of the gun over firing it for a lot of time can tend to gum up the engines a little bit. But they figured that out. They keep them clean. The guys that work on them are absolutely tremendous. And you've had the occasional hiccup or the occasional gun malfunction, but it's very, very rare. And never got a stall warning because we were going too fast when we shot it.
Well, let's be honest. Fast in the A10 is like what, 1,600
Well,
knots?
it's
I mean,
relative, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it's. I mean, birds are honking at you to get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, wow. So, yeah, we got some comments about the gun. Where I'm from, we judge a man by the size of the bullets he shoots.
Well,
You
I'll drink
know,
to that.
I was impressed by the F4 bullet. Didn't have to pull that out. All right, here's an actual question. If you could have any ingredient in a burger, what would you go for? Let me guess, you're vegan, so we don't do burgers
Me?
and yeah.
No. No, 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 no. Oh God, where do folks come from that ask questions like that? Let me think about that.
It's always somebody asked if you like tacos earlier. I missed it. I wanted to grab
Um,
it, but I missed it.
well, you got to have cheese, you got to have onions, you got to have lettuce and tomato, you got to have maybe a jalapeno or two would be good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Bacon, yeah.
Oh, you got to add bacon. Here's one. Do you think the A10 would show up in private hands, and would you buy one? I think that goes to your original. Could I just get one more flight?
Yeah, I'd buy one if I had the money. I doubt very seriously it'll show up in private hands, simply because maintaining. Well, there are people rich enough to do that, I suppose. Maintaining an airplane like that, keeping it airworthy, and all the rest of it is not a cheap process. I would doubt it, but hey, I'll never say never. I mean, there's all sorts of airplanes in private hands today that I never would have thought would be there.
Yeah, that Harrier. Oh, well, it's for
Mustangs,
sale now.
Spitfires, and Harriers,
Yeah.
and yeah, so could
Yeah.
happen. Sure.
Um, Another more personal question. What's your favorite airplane movie, and do you have dogs?
Uh, I'll take the second one first. I had dogs, past tense.
Oh,
My wife and I had a golden retriever for years and years and years. He's a great part of the family. But we always felt we were a little unfair to him because we packed up and moved every 2 or 3 years. We went all over the place. We did our best to include him in everything we could, but you couldn't always do that. So when he flew west, we decided not to get another one. I miss him. I wish I could, but no, not for now. Yeah. Favorite airplane movie? Well, it's not Top Gun, I can tell you.
Iron Eagle, obviously.
Oh yeah, Iron Eagle. Yeah, I'm going to harken way back, and I'm going to go really strange here because I suppose the best airplane movie I ever saw was 12 O'Clock High, and it was about bombers.
Yeah,
but it portrayed an awful lot of the traits, the leadership, and the culture that I find attractive about guys that fly.
They made us watch that in OTS where the guy gives he strips the sergeant down to airman and then re-promotes the other guy.
Yeah. Lots to be learned there.
All right, so a couple more questions, then we'll let you run. Do you have a good luck charm?
Not as such. I've got some superstitions, but I don't have a good luck charm as such. Despite warnings from everyone all the time, I never took my rings off when I flew. That was superstition, and it started in pilot training before I was married, because I got my class ring, University of South Carolina here, and I took that off one morning and left it on the sink when I went out to fly, and I busted the ride.
Oh no!
Yeah. And I came back and I said, I'm not going to do that again. So the ring's always been on when I flew. Then when I got married, the same thing is true. The ring stayed on. There are always strange things that pilots do. I always put the right glove on first, and when the crew chief strapped me in, I always did the left riser first. Why? I don't know. Beats me. Strange.
Wow.
But every now and then I'd run into a crew chief who said, well, I usually do the right one, sir. And I'd look at him and say, well, not this time, bucko.
Yeah. Wow, you don't want to. You can't mess with tradition there.
Oh, I know, and it makes no sense at all, obviously. But
yeah. Well, I mean,
with me.
I've still got the same watch that I fly with from pilot training. I don't wear it. I put it in my pocket. Yeah. Like I've got my GPS watch on one hand and my Casio G-Shock in my my pocket there. I'm afraid. William would like to know: have you seen anything unidentified?
No.
Yeah,
no, never have. I know guys that have, but
you really?
I'm not one of them. Yeah, a couple.
Yeah.
I believe in them though. I think they're out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
All right. Decimal would like to know: can you feel the aircraft getting lighter as you fire rounds out of it?
Yeah. You wouldn't believe how heavy that gun is.
Oh yeah.
You look at this. This is a little over a pound. There's almost 1,200 of those in the gun, and then you figure the weight of something that it takes to fire that at 70 rounds per second. No, not at all. You still there?
Unidentified. Yeah, I'm here. Oh. We got the swirly of death for a second there, but we're back.
Okay.
All right, and the last question of the night.
Well,
this is not a well, two questions. GPS smartwatch security risk in comparison? No, it's not a security risk. David, is it more fun to fly low and slow or low and fast?
Well, again, I'm gonna sit on the fence a little bit here. It's more fun flying low and maneuvering in the A10 because you could. You can turn and you can bank and you can come up over a ridge line and roll inverted and pull down the other side. You can do that in the F4 too, but because fast in the F4 is 540 knots or thereabouts, you cannot really maneuver as such. When you go fast and straight. We used to carry mines in Southeast Asia, landmines that we would drop along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they had a 500 knot limit on them supposedly for deployment, and I think the slowest I ever dropped one of those was about 560. Because when you're down at I don't know, 400 or 500 feet, people are shooting down at you. You don't much care about the operational limits of the bomb. You'll go as fast as that puppy will carry you. And that was, if it hadn't been terrifying, would have been a lot of fun. But going fast in the F4 down low, great. But the ground is a blur. And you have to really pay attention. In the A10, you can move and maneuver and look around and see what's happening, and that has its own kind of joy associated with it.
I lied. I got a better question for you.
Good.
Another one came up. What was your first dogfight like in the F4?
I lost.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Again, it was in replacement training unit. It was in at MacDill in Florida when we were just training to do that kind of thing. And at the time, we weren't doing much in the way, if anything, we weren't doing any dissimilar air combat training. So it was always F4 versus F4, and the airplane obviously flew the same way. It had the same performance characteristics. It was all down to the pilot and the skill and experience of the pilot. And as the newbie on my first dogfight experience, I got my butt kicked good and proper by the instructor in the other airplane. And that happened for a number of flights, but fortunately, that's the nature of training. As you came along, you began to file little things away. Why didn't I do that? Why should I have done this? And as I got a little bit better, I started to win a few, and dare I say it, as I got better than that, I won more than I lost. But it started out very humbling, let's say.
So we've talked about what you did, but did you have a reason not to want to get back in aviation? Was it just you peaked and that was it?
No. Fighter pilots are narcissists. We have an ego as big as all outdoors, and an awful lot of my friends went on to fly commercial. But I actually went and got the instrument license, and I had all the stuff to go and do that. But I thought about spending a couple of years in either the jump seat or the right seat, getting coffee for the captain, and I thought, nah, not for me. Nah. That's not for me. It's not what I want to do with my life. So I never really had any great burning desire to go into commercial aviation for that reason, and it was just childish narcissism. That's all.
Well, the last one is a comment that I agree with. Great stories, great personality. Thank you, Smokey, for your time. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for sharing this. This is awesome. This is history.
I enjoy this. This is at my age, this is still the most fun I can have with my clothes on.
Well, that's yeah. And we thank you for keeping them on.
I would have it no other way, Mover. No doubt about it.
Real quick. Nope. Now this guy. We got one more. I'm
okay.
sorry.
Do it. Oh. Okay,
You,
I
you
can tell you
know
that
you,
one.
you know it's always this is a
Yeah,
good one too because we
yeah,
talked about this one. How
yeah.
did you get? Um,
Most these days, guys get tactical call signs when they're relatively young, relatively new. Lieutenants, captains, lieutenants, lots of lieutenants screw things up and they get call signs that stick with them for life. In my day, that didn't happen very much. I walked around for the better part of 25 years with nothing on my name tag but Steve Ladd. But I finally got nabbed for a tactical call sign when I was a full colonel. I was an '06, and I was a commander of an organization which at the time was called Air Warrior. Now I think they call it Green Flag. It's based out of Nellis. We hosted, just like Red Flag does. We hosted units, flying units that came in, and they flew against or they flew in support of a huge Army training exercise down the road at Fort Irwin in California. So I was a commander of this organization, and it was a good organization. We did great work, and when you get a good
awesome.
reputation like that, one of the downsides of that is you've always got guys that want to come look at you and see what you're doing. So you spend an awful lot of your time getting all excited about high rollers coming in to see how you're doing. We had at one point General Lowe, LOH, General John Lowe, who was commander of Tactical Air Command at the time, 4-star, and he wanted to come see Air Warrior, and he wanted the guided tour, which of course we were most delighted to give him. So as we did in those days, and as I'm sure they still do, we ran around and cut the grass with scissors and spit shined the urinals and did all those things that you do
Spit shine the
before
urinals.
high rollers show up. And on the appointed day, he was coming to see us, and I thought it would be a good time for my semi-annual boot shine. I did that not very often and not particularly well, but I used to do it every now and then. So I sat down with two or three of my guys, and we were just shooting the breeze, waiting for the general to show up. And I was polishing these boots, and I was, you put the polish on and you light them with the lighter, and you let it melt, and you do all that kind of stuff. And I got distracted. I was talking to one of these guys, and I dropped the lighter, and it ended up igniting the polishing cloth. So we're standing there, and this polishing cloth's down in front of us, and it's smoking up. And God, I look out the door, and up the walk comes this 4-star, and it's me, the commander, and one of my A10 guys, a guy named Andy Clay, and one of my F-16 guys, and we're all running around in circles trying to figure out what we do about this bushfire that I've lit with my boot shine. And here we are, fighter pilots all, reenacting the old "when in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout." We were getting nowhere at all. And then out of the back office came my second lieutenant, my seeing eye second lieutenant, executive officer, a young fella called Mark Seacard, and he looked at us and shook his head, took a trash can, upended it on the thing, and of course put the fire out. And I looked around at these other guys and I said, why didn't we think of that? So second lieutenant Seacard saved the day. The general came in. He sniffed the air a little bit because he could tell something had been burning, but he was none the wiser. And the greatest part of this story is that Second Lieutenant Seacard today is Brigadier General Seacard, and he's the commander of I think it's either Air National Guard or Reserve Unit, C-130 unit, where he is. And I thought, isn't that great? I love stories that end that way. And
Yeah.
he was the coolest head in the building that day. And oh, yeah, I missed the punchline. Uh,
Yeah.
Smokey. I've been known as Smokey in certain circles ever since.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who actually dubbed you Smokey?
It was the A10 guy, that worked for me. He was a captain at the time, and he said, he's pretty impressive, Smokey, and it stuck.
That is awesome. Well, awesome stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your stories. Hold on, I'm gonna get rid of that. And it's been great having you. Thank you so much for being there. Where can they find your book? One more time.
Okay, you can
Link is
find
in
the
the
book just
description.
about anywhere. Um, Let me say this slow. I don't know if you can stick. Oh, book link is in the description. Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
I put it in the description
You
and
can
the
get it on. There's all sorts of good stuff on the website, by the way. If you want to look that, that's phantomtowarthog.com. And if you go to the book tab on the top, it'll show you where to order the book. And you've got all sorts of other stuff like all the patches I wore throughout a career, and all sorts of good stuff. It's a pretty good website, if I do say so myself.
is this right?
So,
Is it two or two? TO or T?
sorry?
Is it Phantom 2 like the number 2 or Phantom
No,
TO?
no, Phantom TO Warthog.com.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna scroll this across because I got these fancy features now. Bam! Is that
That's pretty
right?
impressive. That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Phantom2warthog.com. Awesome.
Yeah.
Smokey, you rock, man. You know what? Shanghai emailed me the other day, and he said,
Yeah.
you know what we ought to do? We ought to get a panel of people that have been interviewed and
Right.
just talk about stuff.
Oh,
Talk
that'd be
about
great.
like the differences between red flag and combat and the differences
Yeah, that'd
between
be great.
training and all that stuff. So if you will join us, I'd be honored to have you on our panel when we start doing these things.
Count me in. Count me in. I love this stuff.
Yeah, we talk about just telling stories and all the cool stuff. Maybe we'll do some Vietnam stuff. I've interviewed a couple fighter pilots that have done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Reno. He flew RF-4s and different people from different walks of life. So awesome! Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in the chat that has asked all these questions. You guys are awesome.
Thanks for your questions. I enjoyed answering them.
Yeah, this is just awesome. We will do more of this. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Have a good night. Smokey, thank you for everything. Check out his book. You will love it. And I can't wait for the audiobook because I'm going to listen to it on the way to Eglin.
That's great. Sorry for the snafu at the beginning. I used to fly jets,
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have at least 4 of those per episode, it wouldn't be a Mover Monday with Mover. It really wouldn't. I mean, it just wouldn't. So, all right, everybody. Good night. Take care.
Thank you all. Thanks.